Hey everybody, this is Jeff Baird from AriseFromTheDust.com, certified body language trainer through the science of people. This is the first of what I hope to be many videos as we enter into the presidential election season. I want to do some videos on the body language of the candidates. Politics is a fun area to explore when it comes to body language because these are individuals that are very highly trained in the types of gestures and expressions that they do. But they also have very high emotions, especially if they're talking about other candidates and doing debates. So it's a target-rich environment for also looking for hidden emotions and looking for lies as well. I wrote an article in September on the scienceofpeople.com's website doing some debate analysis from the previous two Republican debates. In video format, though, we can actually watch some of the videos from the debate and we can analyze it a little more further. What I started out with this is pointing out the beginning of body language and its importance in the world of politics goes all the way back to the presidential debate between Kennedy and Nixon. This had a huge impact on the outcome of the debate and the election. Anyone that watches that debate can see that Kennedy comes across as much more confident, much more calm. He's more of an alpha male and more of a leader through his body language, whereas Nixon comes across as more nervous and fidgety. Since then, politicians have learned how important it is to get their nonverbal message exactly right. There's tons and tons of fun things to look at in these videos, so I'm going to break it up into segments. This first video, I'm going to focus on hands. Okay, hands are super important. They're our trust indicators. They are an effective way for us to communicate our message. And we want to be mindful of what we're doing with our hands to make sure that we're communicating what we want to communicate. And one thing you'll notice is since these politicians are trained in body language, you'll see that a lot of their gestures are the same, as some of these pictures are showing. But where it gets exciting is when the emotions start to get high, then things start to leak out, and then you can start seeing some things that even though they mentally know they shouldn't do, they start to do it anyway. So let's look at some videos. This first one, and I'm going to mute these videos so that I can still comment on the video as we go through it. And that might be kind of an eye-opener as well, because you can tell a lot about what the person's saying or how they're feeling even without the audio. So as an example of some body language with our hands, let's look at Ted Cruz and see what he's doing with his hands. So one of the first things you'll notice that all the politicians do is at some point in their delivery, they will have palms up or palms in type of hand orientation. Okay, this conveys openness and warmth, which is something that they want at certain points in their delivery. But at other times when they get a little more serious, you notice what Ted's doing there. He's got kind of this soft fist, but with his finger, and he's pointing down towards the podium. They'll switch to that kind of a gesture when they really want to show that it's something that's really important to them and they're really serious about it. So watch for the politicians with palms up and then switch into this, or they may stick a finger up in the air. That's very controlled, very deliberate hand gestures. Alan Pease, I had his picture over here in my article. He's right up there with Paul Ekman. He's one of the gurus of body language. And he was, in his research, he's found that in talking to groups of people and inviting them to do something, they can get about 84% of people to comply and to agree with the requests if they ask with their palms up. What's interesting, though, is even keeping the content of what they're asking the same and keeping the tone of voice the same, if they switch to palms down and ask a group of people if they'll do something, then the compliance drops to 52%. Even worse, if they ask people with a finger point, then the compliance drops down into the 20s. So something as simple as where your hands are oriented has a big impact on how you're perceived. And you can see that being used deliberately here with the politicians. And it's something for us to keep in mind. These videos are fun to watch. But in the end, I hope we can learn something from it. If you want to convey openness and warmth and you're inviting someone to do something, pay attention to where your palms and your hands are oriented, and you'll be received better with your palms up. Let's look at another example here. So once again, another Rand Paul doing the same thing that Ted does with the palms up. Another thing he's doing is, as he's talking, he's also doing some gestures so that he's communicating both with the verbal content and with nonverbal content, which reinforces the message, makes it stick a little bit more in our heads. A little side note there, even though it's not related to hands, you can see Trump's expression there. He has a look of contempt or superiority. That's what you see, that when there's one side of the mouth that's higher than the other. See that a lot in politicians as well. Lots of open hand gestures, right? And we can use that when we're talking about ideas. If we're talking about a really big idea, then we'll do big hand gestures. Or if we're talking about a small idea, we can make small hand gestures to communicate that. So those are some examples of upward palm orientation. So next, we've talked about how to use our palms up, but let's talk about the palms down for a little bit. Politicians will generally try to avoid the palms down or the palms out. This is communicating to back up, to stop, to sit down. It's more condescending of a hand gesture. It's more of a dominant alpha position, which sometimes that's what you want to communicate. So sometimes it's deliberate while they'll use that gesture, but a lot of times it just comes out when they're upset or angry. Especially in these debates, you can see it when all the politicians are all trying to get a little slice of time where they can talk about what's important to them. Then the palms come forward instead of up, and we can see some examples here in some of the interactions in this video. So there we go. There's right. In fact, let's pause that for a second. You got Christie and Kasich that are both trying to talk at the same time, so both of them have their palms out, both trying to silence the other person and try to get them to back up so they can finish what they're saying. I'm going to do a follow-up video to this too, where we talk about other cues of hidden emotions, which I'll give you a little hint. We saw one there with Kasich right there. He wasn't happy that Christie's getting the stage now. Now, in Alan Pease's research that he's done on the palms down, as I said, they generally would get less compliance in asking people to do something when when their palms are down. But after the people were asked to do something, they also were asked to describe the person that was doing the asking, and the types of adjectives that they used were a lot more negative with palms down and with finger pointing. They also remembered less of what was being told to them and what they were being asked to do. So something to keep in mind. If you want more influence, then keep your palms up. People will think better of you, think more positive adjectives about you. They'll remember what you say more, and they're more likely to do what you're asking them to do. Now, the palms down is bad enough, but sometimes it gets even worse, and we get the finger coming out. So it starts out controlled, palms up, pointing to the air to show that he's serious. There's a little more emotion creeping into his gestures and into his face now. Bigger gestures. Still doing the pointing down on the podium, but it's bigger this time. And there you can see some hidden emotions in there, like I said, that we'll talk about later. But you can tell that he's getting more angry. Christie does this kind of bob back and forth and kind of a mocking gesture. And as they're arguing back and forth, there goes the finger. And then Christie brings out the finger, very accusatory, very domineering, very back up and shut up. So he's doubling down on it too. He's doing the palm down and the finger pointing. Rand responds by the palms out as well to back up and stop. We see this in not just the Republican side. We haven't seen any debates from the Democrats yet, but in some of their other videos, you can see Hillary talking to a Black Lives Matters activist, and she's doing this through a lot of the conversation, almost like she's telling them to back up, sit down, shut up. One other little bonus hand gesture that you can keep in mind to use. The candidates are asked about their faith in God, and one thing that Ted does, which is a good move if you want to show that something is very close to you, close to your heart. Notice how he brings his hand to his midsection or to his heart. Right there. That's something that you can do to show non-verbally that this is something that's really important to me. Okay, so in review, try to pay attention to what your default hand position is when you're talking to people, when you're teaching people, when you're asking them to do something, and try to do generally open palms, and you'll be better received. And avoid the palms down and the finger pointing unless it's really intentional and deliberate to come across as domineering. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at arisefromthedust.com. There's online trainings as well as individual coaching or corporate training, and we can help to teach you how to take control of your body language to make sure that the nonverbal message is consistent and congruent with your verbal message. Thanks.